All right, guys, this is your week 5 mini lecture, chapters 12 and 13 on divorce and remarriage. So this is a little bit lighter week because you have an exam due this week, and then you only have one assignment other than a discussion board. So again, this is not too difficult. Make sure that you listen to the whole video so you know what to answer for this assignment. But uh, so this is looking at divorce and remarriage. Um, One of the things about marriage in this country that people, I think they realize, but they don't realize, is that marriage is a legally binding contract, and the government tells you who you can marry. Um, they do. They tell you. Um, they tell you who you can marry. They tell you that marriage is between this person, or they tell you because you have to get a license to get married. So the government is giving you permission to get married. So then when we look at divorce, divorce is a divorce is breaking a legal contract. When you get married, that is a legal contract. It says that you are bound to this other person, that you have certain responsibilities and all that. So divorce is the process in which you go through to end that marital contract. I know we take all the fun out of anything romantic with marriage in this class. So that's kind of where we're talking about with divorce, is that it's why you have to go to court. It's why you can't just say I don't want to be married anymore and walk away. I mean, you can, but it doesn't work that way. A judge has to say you are no longer married. If you think about divorce and you think about what goes into that, or what went into the marriage, if somebody wants to walk away from a marriage and have no responsibility, it doesn't work that way. You can't just leave the spouse with all of the debt, or people have rights in a relationship. So it does become something that has to become very official, very legal. So this chapter really talks about a lot of general things with divorce and remarriage, and it talks about divorce rates and all of that. And then, I mean, it's been pretty consistent, but there's been some up and downs with that. But oh, I'm so sorry. I hate when I do that during a video. I'm so sorry. Divorce rates, marriage rates, and divorce rates have been pretty consistent over the years. And so there's a lot of data in there that talks about, who got divorced and that sort of thing. But you can certainly read that. It does talk about the odds of your marriage lasting, and how long you've been married, and does that increase your chances of staying married. And one of the theories that comes back around again is that social exchange theory. When you're thinking about if you want to end your marriage, one of the things you do is you weigh the pros and the cons. You weigh what are the rewards and the cost. And if the outcome is divorce or the outcome is to stay married, you weigh that. So that's very much a social exchange theory kind of idea. And it kind of looks at how people make a choice to divorce, and they look at, what comes from the life after this person, but also, what is the life with this person if they stay with this person. And a lot of that goes into that, is a lot of it is as well is longevity of the marriage. So this chapter just really, it's a lot of data in the divorce chapter. And it talks about crude divorce rate and refined divorce rate and all of that, predictors of divorce rate, and it talks about marital satisfaction and marital quality, and that, that kind of what goes into that idea of, is a marriage going to last? Being, young, and getting married when you're very young is risky, just because of things like, You don't make as much money. You're emotionally, developmentally not at a place where, especially when you're 15 or 16, but when you're, 19, 18, 19, you're developmentally not, yes, you understand, but you're just not developmentally an adult yet. So those are some things that kind of go into that. That go into that kind of idea of thinking about, marriage and also divorce. And one of the things sometimes that people think is that, oh, well, if we have a child, that will help. Oh, my goodness, no, that does the complete opposite. Children do not fix a broken marriage. They actually make it worse. The child doesn't, but it brings another factor into that relationship. You remember, we go back to the discussing that the center of the strength of the family is the couple. Adding a baby to something that's already stressful is never a good outcome. So there's a lot of things in that divorce chapter that talk about, how maybe you can minimize the odds of divorce, etc. I want you to look at table 2, the 10 actions individuals can take to minimize the odds of divorce. And think about people that you know. Think about someone with a successful marriage, or think about someone that has been divorced. Do those 10 actions apply or not? So answer that for your first question for this. Look at table 2 in which chapter is it, 12? On divorce. And it says the 10 actions individuals can take to minimize the odds of divorce. Now, it doesn't mean divorce isn't going to happen, but these things minimize that. And then think about a couple that you know, whether it's you or it's someone else, it's your parents, it's your grandparents, it's people that you know that are divorced, people that you know are married. What do the married people do? Are these things things that they do, or are these things that they're doing to hopefully minimize a divorce? Or if you know someone who is divorced, were some of these things a factor? Were they a teenager? So just kind of think about how that applies to any relationship that you know. If you really don't know anybody, try to look at who has a successful marriage, and are those things a factor or not for them. Your chapter goes on to talk about the effects on children. It's one of the things we forget, that children are little people, but they have big ears. They hear, they see, they know what's going on. And, even children, I can think of one friend that I have. He divorced his now ex-wife when their son was just 18 months old. And, their son never knew his parents married, and they never, ever. I mean, they always were divorced. He always lived with his dad. Like, that's just how it was. And yet this young person, even at 17 and 18, still thought that there was a chance that their parents could get back together, and blamed himself for his parents divorcing. Had nothing to do with him. But even when that divorce happened at 18 months old, that child still felt responsible for that divorce. And those of you that may unfortunately be from a home where your parents are divorced, you know what that feels like. That's a frustrating thing. And it's something that you have to, if you are going to get divorced, you have to enter into that very, very carefully when you have children. Because at that point, it's not about you. It's about the kids, and how are you going to make this work? Some core guidelines for divorcing parents is table 3. Again, I want you to go back to that couple that you know, and successful or not successful. Hopefully you are able to come up with a couple that you know who have divorced. Did they do those things? Were they respectful of each other? Did they maintain predictable routines? Did they use mediation? Did they get professional help for their children? Try to think of a couple that you know divorced, and see, did they follow any of these guidelines? Answer that for the second question. If you really don't know anybody, try to think of people Even if you have to say, I know this couple from church or from the neighborhood, I don't really know for sure, but it seems like these were some issues. That's okay. You can certainly say that. Let's see here. And then jumping into chapter 13, again, remarriage and step families becomes about the remarrying couple. There may be children from other marriages. And I think sometimes people try to enter into a new potential step family relationship or remarriage, and they want to be friends with their future spouse's kids. Again, you have to enter into this working on you guys as a couple and working on that, so then you guys are a united front with the children. The other stuff will come. It certainly is fine to want to spend time with your new spouse's children from a previous marriage, but again, the center of that family becomes that remarrying couple. Again, read through the chapter. Again, there's lots of data. There's always lots of data in the divorce and remarriage stuff. You know, and about halfway through it talks about the step family, you know, subsystems, and how, you know, the parents that have divorced become single parents, but when the parents that have divorced remarry, now they become step parents. And that's a whole other factor in how families function. The whole other factor. Yeah. So let me look here. This chapter really is pretty self-explanatory as far as, you know, what's going on in the chapter. There's not really anything too crazy in this chapter. So for your third question, from chapter 13, tell me one new thing that you learned. Okay. So again, you don't need much explanation in this. You really don't. It's, yeah, let me see here. See, again, this is something that's so frustrating to me. So I'm going to back up for just a second. In chapter 13, there's a section where the author talks about Olson and Dufresne, and they talk about the circumplex model. And then the author of your textbook that we're using calls it the circumflex. No, it's the circumplex. I don't really know why he's bringing it up, because he doesn't even show you a picture of it, which is kind of crazy. So, sorry, I just noticed that when I was reading through here. Again, he goes, this author of the textbook very much likes social exchange theory. So he goes down there in figure 6, again, talks about rewards and costs of different things. So anyway, your third question, again, just tell me one thing that you learned from chapter 13. All right, guys, that's all. Again, always reach out if you have questions about something, because I don't go over everything, but I might assume that things are easy to read for you, but there might be something that's confusing you, so just reach out. Thanks. Have a great day.